What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for November 7th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. Let's start, as we always do, with some quick housekeeping notes. Be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont. Spread the word. I've been saying it. But if you're enjoying this, likely someone in your circle will as well. So let's continue to outsmart the algorithm. It is working. Lots of good things happening. We were featured in the On Pattison newsletter yesterday. Once again, looks like that could be maybe once or twice a week we're going to be in there. So that's pretty cool. So go check them out on Pattison from the same people that brought you Crossing Broad. Lots of good things happening there. And then the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame Heritage Collection is now available online. All the information you need is in the link. That's the project I've been working on with them. And it's pretty cool because tonight is the induction ceremony, and I have all kinds of cool memorabilia just sitting in my office right now that I'm taking down to live casinos. So go check that out. The information is in the description. It'll take you to the website and explain everything, and then take you right out to the online archives. Speaking of the induction ceremony, I'll try to have sort of a quick recap of the night's events tomorrow. And then since today is our last day of the inductee spotlights, and then we have a few days. I like to try to do kind of like a special thing. We do the state of Philly sports, this day in Philly sports history, and then whatever the special segment is. And we have some time before we get into when our gift and food drive kicks off. We're going to do what we're thankful for in Philly sports throughout November through Thanksgiving. So to kind of fill that void, something I've been playing around with, looking forward to seeing how this goes. But kind of give you what was going on in Philly sports on that particular day. So like what else was in the sports page? What else would we be talking about if we had a podcast back on that day in Philly sports history? So try it out for a few days, see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to that. It's always fun to read through the old newspapers, see what was going on, see what people were talking about, and even more so, look at the ads, like see the prices for food, cars, things like that, just even the style of the cars. So that will kick off tomorrow. I think we'll do that for about 10 days before we get into what we're thankful for in Philly sports to kick off our second annual gift and food drive benefiting the Maddie N. Dixon Community Cupboard. I have a GoFundMe set up, flyers made. So if you see a flyer, the QR code's right there if you want to donate that way. But all that information will be coming shortly. All right, let's start with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, this next 4-game stretch for the Eagles, I think, is going to tell us a lot about where this team is in the NFC and whether they're legit Super Bowl contenders or not. So I asked you, how many games do you think the Eagles will win? And 56% of you think they're going to win 3 or 4 against the Cowboys, Washington, the Rams, and the Ravens. It's very aggressive, very lofty. I'm hoping they win 3. I think 2-2 is more realistic. I think they have to win 2 out of go 2-2. So we'll see. But thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. There'll be another one here later in the show. And I apologize for my voice. Nice little fall cold. Never fails. Every year leading up to Thanksgiving, I get a cold for as long as I can remember. So here we are. It's a few days early. But so I apologize if I sound a little nasally and congested. All right, some positive news on the Eagles injury front. Dallas Goedert practiced yesterday. Looks like he is set and in line to play on Sunday. A.J. Brown practiced in a limited fashion, so that's also a positive news. Fred Johnson did not practice. He did have a brace on his knee. You remember he took that cheap shot on Jalen Hurts' touchdown run. But it's looking like the Eagles should be in good shape injury-wise for this game. I did see on the Cowboys injury report, Micah Parsons could be back. He hasn't played since, I think, like week 4 with a high ankle sprain. So we'll see what kind of impact he can have in this game. And then CeeDee Lamb seems like he's planning on playing as well. And, I mean, they're going to need all the help they can get coming in for this game. But it is Cowboys week. So that leads us to today's question of the day. Lots and lots of great memories in this rivalry. We talked about Randall Cunningham and Buddy Ryan doing the fake kneel a few weeks ago. We have the 1980 NFC Championship game. But my question to you, I narrowed it down to 4. If you have others, hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Let me know what I missed. But out of these 4, what is your favorite Eagles-Cowboys memory? Is it the Bounty Bowl back in 1989, 4th and 1 where they stopped Emmitt Smith, the 44-6 beatdown at the Link so the Eagles could clinch a playoff spot, or the Pickle Juice game, which we just talked about a few weeks ago as well? Let me know your thoughts on your favorite Eagles-Cowboys memory, 267-495-8531. Get that, anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. That is the Back to the Future voice and text line. And I wanted to mention this as well. Lots of talk yesterday from people saying that Howie Roseman should have done more. He should have attempted to make a trade to make this team better. Everybody talked about Washington and Detroit getting better. And I'm not so sure he didn't attempt to, but I think he was smart. There was no glaring holes. I think if the Eagles added anything at the trade deadline, it would have been for depth purposes, which obviously you're going to need. But I think he just didn't like what he saw, or maybe the price wasn't right. So I'm not so sure that he was just sleeping through the trade deadline. And sometimes it's better to not just make a trade for the sake of making a trade. We've seen some of them work out. We've seen some of them not. So I think that means they're happy, which I think the way they've been playing, I would be happy too. I just don't know if you just make a trade for the sake of making a trade. I don't think he didn't try to. I mean, for what probably was out there, what the asking prices were, I don't know if it was worth it. So there's my thoughts on that. We're done with the trade deadline. We're moving on to Eagles-Cowboys. And even though it's lost some of the luster, it's still a Dallas week. So looking forward to this game, 4:25 on Sunday. Eagles still holding strong as a 7-point favorite in that. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences. New football episode drops today. College football and basketball will be dropping, I believe, later this week, likely tomorrow. But go check them out wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Steven and the team are doing a great job over there. And then go to Philly Goat. They have all kinds of things. I had a friend text me yesterday asking for the promo code because I didn't even realize they have some old school snapbacks that are pretty cool. So go to Philly Goat, check them out, get your Eagles stuff. If you want Sixers stuff, you can get that. But they got you covered. The cooler bags are still there. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off your order. It's never too early to start your holiday shopping. I know there are some people that I know that are likely already done all their Christmas shopping. But if you're like me and you like to wait till the last minute, go to Philly Goat first. Use that promo code Jim Montgomery, and you can take 10% off of your order. All right, speaking of those Sixers, before we get into the game, I thought this was very odd and very arrogant from the Inquirer. Marcus Hayes is still going to be covering the Sixers. He is a columnist, so he kind of rotates around to the different sports. But, man, it's just I don't know. I don't think there's going to be anything else, but it's just I don't know, very arrogant move if you ask me. And I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. I just think there's no reason why he needs to be back in that locker room after everything. But based on kind of what we know about him, totally makes sense. And if you haven't heard or know already, I am not a fan of Marcus Hayes. But the game itself was just brutal. 110-98, they lost out in L.A. in Paul George's homecoming. They're now 1-6. Not the start we were hoping for. It's maybe Joe's going to change. I don't even know. I've lost all confidence in this team. Paul George did have 18 points in his return. And if it doesn't get if that wasn't bad enough, it continues to get worse. Tyrese Maxey left the game with hamstring soreness, so this team is an absolute dumpster fire right now. And I don't know. I feel as though I call out people that have punchable faces, and I said this before, but the Sixers right now, if they were a person, they would have a punchable face. They're in LA still tomorrow to take on the Lakers and LeBron James. I mean, the way they're playing, we might see Bronny tomorrow. Oof. But it's just not good. Hopefully, when Joe comes back next week, hopefully Joe does come back next week, things will continue to get a little bit better or start getting a little bit better. I almost feel at 1-6, they can't get much worse. All right. Flyers tonight in Tampa Bay. Good news on the Sam Ersson front. He did make the road trip with them, which is some positive news. Not sure if he's going to play. I think it's a 3-game road trip for them, so that is positive. But they're in Tampa Bay tonight to take on the Lightning. All right. Today, we're going to go back to 2004, and we talked the other day about T.O. getting suspended. We'll rewind a year, and on this day in 2004, the Eagles suffered their first loss of the season, 27-3 out in Pittsburgh. Donovan struggled, only threw for 109 yards, had an interception, was sacked 4 times. The Eagles defense could not stop Jerome Bettis. He ran all over them for 149 yards. But the big story out of this game was it was the first sign of a little bit of a crack in the armor for Donovan and T.O. Midway through the second quarter with the Eagles down 21-3, the cameras caught them having what looked like a heated discussion on the sidelines. McNabb was visibly upset. He seemed to be walking away from T.O., and T.O. just kept following him, was all in his face. Didn't stop, which we know from T.O. They all chalked it up to just a pep talk and being frustrated. But meanwhile, little did we know, a year later, T.O. would be suspended and it was all over, even though they had that magical Super Bowl run. But on this day in 2004, Eagles lost their first game of the season in Pittsburgh, 27-3. But we started to see a little bit of the rift, I guess you could say, between Donovan and T.O. start. As the cameras caught them having a discussion. McNabb, I watched the replays of it yesterday. You could tell he wanted no parts of T.O. He was biting his tongue, trying to be right, and then everybody else chalked it up. T.O. was like, I was just encouraging him. Andy Reid was like, I didn't see it. But this was sort of like that, the crack in the armor started on this day back in 2004. Finally today, our final 2024 Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame inductee class, because the ceremony is tonight. The spotlight today is on Stan Walters for football. Stan played tackle for the Eagles for 8 years from 75 to 83, and he was an anchor on those Dick Vermeil teams that made the playoffs 4 straight years. He helped anchor a line that had 3 1,000-yard rushing seasons from Wilbert Montgomery. He also played in Super Bowl 15. Stan was a 3-time All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, and this is amazing. Started 125 out of 127 games in his Eagles career, including 122 in a row. He protected Ron Jaworski's blind side and was one of the best to ever do it in Eagles history. After he retired, he spent 14 years sitting alongside Merrill Reese in the Eagles radio box as the radio color commentator. And for me, this is where I remember Stan Walters because it's hard to believe, but there were times where Eagles home games were blacked out because they didn't sell out. So you had no choice but to listen to it on the radio. So Stan and Merrill growing up with those Buddy Ryan defense, Randall Cunningham, there's my favorite clip of Stan Walters. Nobody does it better than number 12. Sometimes we'd also just play football in the yard and listen to the game on the radio. But Stan Walters, I talk a lot about Harry Callis being the soundtrack to my summers. Merrill Reese and Stan Walters were the soundtrack to my fall, especially because, like I said, it happened not often, but it happened enough that the Eagles, when they were blacked out, all you had to do was listen to Merrill and Stan to the point where it got me really like sometimes I would watch the game. Now with all the different streaming services and TV, it's hard to do, but I would always try to sync up Merle and Stan instead of listening to whatever the broadcast was. So Stan Walters, better known for his time with the Eagles as a player, but for me, the soundtrack of my fall and Eagles Sundays and listening to Stan and Merle on the radio. He is in the Eagles Hall of Fame, and tonight he takes his place among the all-time greats in Philadelphia sports history when he's inducted into the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. Stan Walters is today's 2024 inductee spotlight. Not sure if he's going to be in attendance tonight or not, but looking forward to hearing some stories about Stan, and just like I said, brings back some good memories from my childhood being the soundtrack of the fall. But he was a hell of a football player to boot as well. One of the all-time greats in Eagles history, and he takes his place among the all-time greats in Philadelphia sports history tonight down at Live Casino. I will have an update, recap of tonight's events tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. On this day in 2004, Eagles lost to the Steelers 27-3 out in Pittsburgh. It was their first loss of the season, but it was the first time, more importantly, we saw a little bit of the dissension between Donovan and T.O., which culminated a year later with T.O. being suspended and the Terrell Owens experience ending in Philadelphia. Flyers in Tampa tonight. Sixers are hot garbage right now. They play the Lakers tomorrow. Let me know your thoughts, though. It is Eagles-Cowboys week. What is your favorite Cowboys-Eagles memory? Bounty Bowl, 4th and 1, 44-6, or the Pickle Juice game, or something else that I'm not even putting on the list. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off your chest? Want to vent about the Phillies and their postseason or I shouldn't say postseason, their offseason approach to free agency. Want to give your thoughts on Juan Soto? That's fair game. Want to tell me how much hot garbage the Sixers is and how bad my prediction was? That's all fair game too. 267-495-8531. That will get you in. Tomorrow we start taking a look at what else was happening on the sports pages this day in Philly sports history. But tonight, it's all about the Hall of Fame. Very much excited. Has all kinds of, like I said, cool memorabilia here, manning the station for the museum display. Looking forward to meeting some of these inductees and just what a great class this is. I hope you enjoyed going through the inductee spotlight because this was a phenomenal class. Very happy to be involved with the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame. And like I said, if you want to see the online archives, the link is in the description. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for November 7th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Thursday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.